What's up, YouTube? So, in this video, we'll be talking about Penii Sewell, I think that's how you pronounce his name. Offensive lineman out of Oregon. And he is being talked about as possibly one of the best players in this class. Now, I'm not that far into this class, but I'm not saying he's bad, because he is a good player. But I think people are kind of overhyping him a little bit. I'm going to be honest with you. He is a good player. Do not twist my words around. I do think he's a good player. But people are talking about him like he's the best offensive lineman to come out ever. Like, there are people saying that. Like, there's literally people saying that he is the best draft prospect of all time. And that's crazy to me. So I got my notes here. He's an offensive lineman, so I don't really need to read any stats for you. But he did opt out of the 2020 season because of COVID. So, yeah, let's go ahead and get into talking about this guy. Like I said, he is a good player. He is 6'6" and about 330 pounds. He's a big dude. He played left tackle at Oregon, and he can definitely play tackle, but I think he'd be a better guard, honestly. For his size, his feet and athleticism are actually pretty good. He's pretty good at, climbing toward linebackers during zone runs and stuff like that. He's pretty good at that, especially for being 330 pounds and 6'6". He moves pretty well. And his feet are okay, too. Let's see. He's got power, like I said. He's 330 pounds, so he's definitely got some power to him. One thing I kind of notice is his hands. He kind of has a tendency to put his hands on the shoulder pads. He doesn't really get them inside like I like. And I've seen his hands get defeated because of that. And in the league, that's going to become a bigger issue. But it's not as bad. And I think just a little bit of a coaching thing will be able to correct that pretty quickly. So I'm not too concerned there. Like I said, his feet are pretty good. He generally has a pretty consistent base as well. Let's see. Sometimes I did notice that he needs to finish plays a little bit more. Sometimes he stops blocking. It's not an all-the-time thing, but sometimes he stops blocking before the play is over. Not a fan of that. Particularly in run plays. His base, like I said, it's pretty good for the most part, but he does have a tendency of making it get a little bit wide. You lose power and balance there, and both of those things are not great when you're an offensive lineman. But the biggest issue I have with him, and this issue completely goes away if you move him to guard, is sometimes he does look a little bit lost on who to block. Sometimes when he has to think a little bit too much, I'm not calling him dumb. Don't do that. But sometimes he kind of gets confused a little bit, especially on like stunts and things like that, where he has to think a lot. Sometimes he kind of gets caught looking around, not really knowing who to block, and it's caused problems. So what I would say is move him to guard. He's got power, because I know people when you hear that. There are people that think that guard is the inferior position. That's not the case. It's just you're dealing with different issues. When you're a tackle, you're dealing with athletic defensive ends most of the time, or, edge rushers, regardless of scheme. So you're dealing with a little bit more athleticism, so the most important things are footwork and stuff like that, but you also do need good football IQ and knowing what is coming and being able to react to it quickly. And his feet are pretty good for his size, so he can play tackle. I think he can play tackle in the NFL. But like I said, sometimes with like stunts and stuff, he starts getting a little bit confused, not knowing who to block, and problems occur. But if you move him inside, you move him to guard, all he has to do is get his hands up and block immediately. Because think about it, a 3-tech, or if you're playing a 3-4 team, someone that's 2-gapping, they're going to be right there. So he's going to be if you put him inside, he won't be dealing with athleticism as much. He'll be dealing with power for the most part, because you're dealing with the heavier people, and he's got the strength to do that, and he doesn't have to think as much. He can just block. And like I said, people try to make tackle to seem like the more superior position. You're just dealing with different types of athletes. You're dealing with athleticism instead of power. And when you're playing guard, you really don't have any help for the most part. If you're playing against a really good edge rusher, or if your tackle sucks, you can help him out with a tight end. If your center sucks, you can have the guard help him. But a lot of times guards are kind of left on their own to block the Aaron Donalds of the world. So don't get it twisted when I say that I think he should move to guard. I'm not saying that in a negative sense. I just think he can play tackle and play well, regardless of where he goes. The hands need to improve. That's one thing. And his base needs to be more consistent. His base is good for the most part. It just needs to clean it up a little bit. But yeah. I think moving him to guard would make him one of the better prospects possibly in this class. I will say, I think throughout the draft process, I think similar to Ed Oliver a little bit a couple of drafts ago, I think his stock is going to move down a little bit. Not because he's a bad player, but because people overhyped him from the beginning. Kind of unnecessarily, honestly. And like I said, he is a good player, but just have realistic expectations. And like I said, he can play tackle. It's kind of like Cody Ford a couple classes ago. Really good tackle, but if you move him to guard, he becomes much better. I think that's the case with him. I think if you put him at guard, he'll be an even better player. Regardless, like I said, work on getting his hands inside, because that is something you need for all 5 positions on the offensive line. And everybody on the defensive line. So, yeah. Anyway, that's going to be it for this video. If you liked it, I'd appreciate hitting that like button. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.